All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
All right, gather around. Gather around, children. Ready. All right, so we're going to talk about grip. Grip is going to begin and end with your inborn or natural strength that you already have. You don't need to lift weights to be able to shoot well, although it doesn't hurt. Same thing with like I joke around about jiu-jitsu, but it doesn't hurt to do some jiu-jitsu to help your shooting. Like it all integrates really well and it all works together really well. So what we're going to talk about right now is your natural strength that you have in you already that's going to help you control the gun. So Mick covered getting a lot of meat on the gun, talked about why you want to get those thumbs out of the way. You guys know that's a relic from revolver shooting, the thumbs up. Why don't I want my thumbs forward on a revolver? That gas is going to give me a pedicure and manicure, right? So I'm going to need to keep my thumbs back. And then guys modified went in here, and you'll see guys shoot kind of like this, but they're doing the same thing, right? The thumb shelf itself is pointing forward. They're just staying away from those gases. So for our purposes though, we can go ahead and get that thumb as far out there as we can, as high as we can. The higher I can get on the gun, the more control I'm going to have, right? So ultimately, if I could get my hands on top of it like this, the gun's not even going to move, but it's just not going to happen. So here's one of the first exercises I want you guys to do to understand that you have the strength in you already, okay? So, Jill, come on up. So what we're going to do is we're going to shake hands. So right now, all I'm going to try to do is bend her thumb back into her wrist or back into her forearm. So relax your hand for a second. So that motion right there is what happens when the pistol goes off and you don't have it braced, correct? So what I'm trying to do is stop that gun from moving. So all she's going to do is put a little consciousness into all this stuff right here and don't let me bend the hand back. So she's not going to let me bend the hand back, right? So hang on. Don't let me bend the hand back. And I can actually physically move her forward. I can put both hands on it and it's not going to bend. If you can do that, you can keep a pistol from moving. Like that gun will sit flat for you. That's all you have to do. Everybody has that ability in you already. So all I want you to do is turn to your partner, grab hands like you're trying to shake hands, and take turns. Try to bend his thumb or her thumb back into their forearm. Try to crank their arm backwards. Make their hand move. If you can't make the hand move, you could shut down the recoil of the gun. What's that?
There you go.
All right, you guys got it? Okay, let's do this now. Do it with your left hand. Because remember, I want all of this and all of this on the gun. So do it with your left hand now. Same exercise. Go ahead and put both hands on their hand if you need to. And try to bend their hand back. All right, that's a simple exercise. So again, when you know, like Mickey said in the beginning, we all end up being instructors in our circles, right? Because we all end up being the gun guy. Especially recently, I've had people that I never would have imagined would want a gun that are like, hey, so about that gun thing. And there's like a side of me, you know, that wants to be a little indignant and be like, yeah, remember when you were telling me I didn't need guns? You know? So anyway, so this is a good little exercise. If you take them to the range and they're flopping around and everything, this is the first exercise I do. Next exercise I do, again, this is why it's important to do jiu-jitsu. If you don't already do it, go do it. Like, obviously, I'm not getting financial benefit from you guys going to do jiu-jitsu. I have no stake in it other than just seeing you better yourselves, right? In jiu-jitsu, if you do a cross-collar choke, right? If I'm going into somebody's collars to try to choke them, the first thing one of the easiest ways to correct somebody who's having a hard time doing it is make them focus on their fingers and roll pinky, ring, middle, index finger. Roll those fingers in, right? Right, Dan? You roll those fingers in. And what does that do? That tightens up everything, and it also tightens up the gi around the neck, but it also does this other thing called connection, which forces you to connect more of your hand to their neck, right? A wider tourniquet does what? Shuts off more blood flow. If I have a really narrow tourniquet, not a whole lot's going to happen, right? But if I can get a big fat one, right? If I can get a big fatty, if I can get a big fatty though, if I can have a fat tourniquet, I'll gladly take that, because that's going to shut off more blood flow. Same thing with their grip here. So what I want you to do now is, I want you to wake that up. Put some consciousness, like Brian was talking about, where we consciously, we begin to regulate our breath, to elevate our consciousness of what we're doing. I want you to consciously do this now. I want you to take the pinky, tighten the ring finger, tighten the middle finger, tighten the index finger as hard as you can. Your partner should feel that, right? So you're going to roll those fingers in. So you're doing this. Why do I want to do that? Which part of the gun lifts? The muzzle, well, the muzzle lifts, but what part am I hanging on to? This. So if I could stop this part from lifting, a whole lot of good things are going to start happening for me.
Amen.
Right? So what I need to do is, I'm going to roll that finger just like that. So what I'm doing is I'm waking myself up, and I'm not just pulling straight back, I'm rolling it up and in. And then see what's happening with my wrist? That's the magic, man. No, I'm kidding. But that's really that's what we're trying to do right there. I'm trying to do that. Not only am I trying to roll my support side hand or my left hand forward so that, what is this, the radial? So that's what I want. I want that radial to be level with the earth, right? Parallel with the earth. And so when I'm doing that, but a lot of people focus on this hand, but I'm doing it on this hand too. I want both hands doing that because that's what keeps that wrist from bending. All right, so now I want you to grab your partner's hand and go pinky, ring finger, middle finger, index finger. Just roll those in, right? Get used to doing that. Wake that up. And do it with both hands. Just roll that under. Do it with both hands. All right, you guys both did it? Both sides? All right, so roll that in, lock that down. All right, so next thing now, what I want you to do is combine both exercises. So I want you to take that second to roll those. So she's going to roll her fingers in, right? Roll her fingers into the palm of her hand, right? Once she gets that set, I'm going to try to bend her wrist back, and she's just going to keep it straight. Even hyperextend it a little bit. So roll it all the way over as if you were shooting, trying to drive the back strap of the gun. And I'm just going to try to bend that right there. Let's do this first. Let's combine those two exercises. And I'm going to show you the last one, and then we're going to get on the guns. Make sense? Yeah. All right, let's do it. So combine those two. Roll your fingers in, and then try to crank their hand back. Lock it down. All right, bring it in. One more time. All right, any questions on that so far? All right, so really quick, I like to give credit to where credit is due. So the person that helped me most with my grip was Dr. Middlebrooks. But prior to training with him, I trained with Ron Avery, who's deceased now. But Ron had a thing called safe exercises. And like Mickey said, if you did the safe exercises, the dry fire routine, you can only do about 10 or 15 minutes of it, and then you're toast. You got to like mentally give yourself a break. Okay? And all that stuff is, you know, Ron talked about getting the pistol out and you lock your tendons. And so you go through the series of presentation, locking and creating more and more tension behind the gun as you drive the gun into the target. So that's basically what we're doing now, right? I'm just kind of giving you a way that you can do this all the time. And when you dry fire, you want to have this kind of tension behind the gun, because the other thing that will happen is an adaptive process will happen where your body will get used to this being normal. You know, we tell guys in jiu-jitsu and working out, strongman, powerlifting, whatever it is that you're doing, we'll tell guys like, hey man, like right now, your whole body hurts. Like when I was competing in strongman, I'd get blood blisters on the outside of my feet because my feet, the blood vessels in my feet would rupture from the weight, you know, walking with the yokes and all that good stuff. And, but over time, your body adapts, right? And you become stronger. And it's the same thing as this. It becomes your new normal. And so when you get behind the gun, you mount the gun, and you're so used to creating this tension behind the gun, or this brace behind the gun, that when you go live, your body just does it automatically for you, because now it's just your normal way of loading it, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is, once we come out here, is we're gonna go, I'm gonna drive this gun out, and then I'm gonna pull back slightly with my left shoulder, and I'm gonna push forward hard with my right shoulder. But I'm pushing into my pinky. Right? So the reason that's important, come here, Joe. So she's gonna put her left hand out, just as if she's mounting the gun, and cup your hand. And so all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my hand right there in the pinky. So my hand's on her pinky, and I'm gonna try to pull her wrist forward. What just happened? Is her wrist moving? Right? So when the gun's in the hand, and that gun's trying to lift, it can't, because the pinky's locking that front strap down. Specifically, the bottom ½ inch of that front strap is keeping that gun from lifting. Make sense? The reason we do this with both hands is so I can shoot with my left hand, or I can shoot with my right, or I could dual wield, like right? All right, so Yeah, exactly. So what I want you guys to do now is just do that exercise. Just put your hand out, lock it in place, all that good stuff, and then have your partner pull on the bottom of it and keep your hand locked there. And I guarantee your partner's pulling harder than this gun's gonna lift on recoil. All right, let's do it.
You're talking about the offhand or the...
Both. I do both. So just kind of reach underneath.
We're doing it wrong.
Yeah. So lock your hand out, right? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get under here and I'm gonna try to pull your hand straight.
Got it.
Yeah. So before you were fighting me from lifting it.
Yes.
And now you're fighting me from pulling.
Got it.
Right. So it's just waking up the pinky side of it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
We're gonna go live for a little bit. We're gonna shoot about 10 rounds each, right? Just doing this live, and then we're gonna go back to the stuff Mickey's working on. You're gonna have your partner mount the gun. They're gonna have both hands on the gun. All I'm gonna do is, so she's gonna aim into whatever, doesn't matter, right? 'Cause I don't care about the target right now because I'm watching this part of the gun. The training partner, so the number 2 person, the person that's offline, your job is to put your hand right here. Why? Because I don't wanna do this. Right, that would be a negative outcome. All right, I mean, you guys would probably think it's cool as hell. Like, this brains went everywhere. Yeah, I didn't even know he had a brain in that head. Yeah, I'll be good. I'll be good with tourniquet. Maybe double tourniquet. All right, so I'm gonna put my hand right here so I don't step in front. I'm coming underneath, right? So I'm coming straight underneath right here, and I'm just gonna try to tilt the gun. See how the gun's barely moving, right? So I'm just gonna try to tilt the gun a little bit, and then she's gonna fight it, maintain that pressure, and then press the trigger. Does that make sense? Fire 1 round, and then we want that instant feedback, right? Because shooting is an instant feedback. It's just an instant loop. Like the sight either comes back or it doesn't. Make sense? So you're learning every time you press that trigger, so that's why we have to be really conscious in our practice. Make sense? All right, so eyes and ears? Eyes and ears. Eyes and ears. All right, so pistols out and online. So fingers out of the trigger, right? They're not gonna fire till you tell them to. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Again, we're doing a really abbreviated version of this, right? So we can get you guys fired up and going. Drive the pistol in. I'm coming underneath, my hand's right here. I'm safe, all right? I'm gonna try to tilt the gun. See where my hand is? I'm trying to tilt the gun, right? Don't let me bend the pistol back. Lock it down, fire 1. Good. Now, lock it down. Now what I want you to do is I want you to pull back with your left hand as hard as you can and push out with your right hand as hard as you can. Lock it down, fire 1. Good. Lock it down, push and pull. Don't let me move your hand, fire 1. Good. Lock it down, push and pull hard as you can, fire 1. Good. Push and pull hard as you can. Lock it down, fire 1. Good. All right. Go ahead and holster up. All right. So did you guys see the gun? It's kind of not moving a whole lot, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to lock that thing down so that it doesn't move on us. We'll get into a whole lot of other stuff as we go, but right now what I want you guys to do is just focus on just driving the gun. All right? Let your body adjust. As Mickey said, just let your body adjust. And so that as we get into this, I want to keep that pistol so that the dot never moves or the front sight never moves. It just stays right in place. Ultimately, what I really like to see when I have those moments is where it just pulsates. The gun pulsates, right? So I just have that front sight, that slide, yeah, just like that. I just have that slide just going like this, right? That's just.
Why don't you demo what that looks like?
Okay. All right, so we're in here, locking it down, drive the gun. Right, so I'm just, make sense? The reason that bottom strap is so important is because you could do this. Right? And the gun doesn't lift. As long as I keep tension on that front strap, on the bottom of the front strap, the gun won't even lift. Not that you need to be, you know, saucer and cupping it, but make sense? All right, let's get up on the line, grab your partner. Training partners, coaches, you're watching their slide in their hands, okay? All right, guys. Go ahead, present the pistol out.
Hey guys, let them draw before you're up in their space.
Present the pistol out. Get that gun up and out. All right, coaches, hand on the shoulder. hand underneath the gun, test their grip. Test that wrist, make sure the wrist doesn't move, nothing's bending, right? All right, push and pull, and when you're ready, coaches, you tell them to send one when they're ready.
Make sure you guys can hear him and are paying attention to commands.
Send 2.
Can we cover more than this?
Send it. Awesome, dude.
Go ahead.
We're going to start putting together strings. So I want you to go through one mag each, right? You know, we're going to alternate just like we just did, but we're going to do now put it together so that your recoil management or recoil mitigation becomes more important as we fire more rounds back to back, right? So we want to be able to lock this puppy down and just let it work. You know, if we do our part, the gun will do its part. Like Mick talked about, any service weapon nowadays, you know, it's going to give you a 4-inch group pretty much out to about 50 yards, right? Jeff, maybe Z or Dan, you guys remember what's the military spec for the surface weapons now? 4 inches at 50?
Sounds right, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's, I think, that too. But I think it's about a 4-inch group at about
3 at 25.
3 at 25. So, yeah, so 3 inches at 25. So every pistol right now, every pistol manufacturer out there right now that's competing for a government contract, that's the standard they have to meet. So that means any gun that's on our hip right now, for the most part, will do that if we do our part. Make sense? So have faith in your equipment. Plus you've sighted it in. I know before you got here, you sighted your shit in. So you know where your rounds are supposed to hit. So trust it to do what it's supposed to do. All right? Because the time to have those doubts is not when you're trying to hit a dude in the eyeball across the room that's trying to do damage to your family member. Make sense?
Amen.
So we want to know that our equipment works and we work. All right? Okay, so come here, Z. Z. Z-Bomb. That's like my favorite name of all time, man. That's like a rock star name if there ever was one. All right, so Z's going to come out, going to get up on target. Now we're going to throw punches in bunches, right? So we're going to put multiple rounds on him. So he's going to lock everything out. I'm going to try to move his hand. It ain't going to happen, right? Now I'm going to ask him to push and pull as hard as he can, right? And I'm going to ask him to give me 3. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. I'm going to lock it down again. Give me 4.
My hand's riding up on it.
Yeah. Ready? I'm going to lock it down again. Give me 5. Nice. All right, holster up. All right, makes sense? Yep. You guys see how it works? Yes. Everybody get it?
Yep.
All right, so what's that?
3, 4, 5.
Well, I mean, you can
He'll tell you.
You can, yeah, your partner's going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can't prep for it. You can't be like, oh, I just got to lock it down for 5 reps. You know, it's like you got to lock it down till you're done. All right, so what we're going to do is, what we're testing here is our ability to make multiple hits as tight as possible. Make sense? Yes. We want those rounds to just sit there. Did you see Z's gun move around much? No. I mean, it's not just because he's a Titan, right? There's technique involved. All right, so we got to lock that down, keep that thing plugged in. Make sense? We got it?
Got it.
All right, let's do it. Up on the line, odds up first. Coaches, do your job. Get up on them, lock them down, push and pull. Don't let your wrist move, and then send it. Lock it down. Don't let the wrist move. It's doing better. Sitting pretty flat. You're slow. Yeah. Just to get them to speed up because they're still going too slow. They're not having. All right, downrange. All right, so here's what we're going to do now because some of you guys are still shooting too slow. For the purpose of this exercise, right? Context drives everything, correct? So if I'm trying to shoot somebody over, or something over in that tree line, right? If I'm trying to make a long range, precise hit, how fast am I going to shoot? Yeah, as slow as necessary, right? To make that hit, you know? I think it's Tom Gibbons that has the verbiage of quickly, carefully, precisely, right? So that's just good verbiage to use for different ranges and different hits. And he has a target actually designed for that. It's kind of cool, right? Looks like it's got like a bigger, it's basically these, but just like the 9, the 3, and the 1. And you go through a series of exercises trying to make those hits. But if I'm up close and I've got a torso-sized target to hit, how slow do I really need to be going? I need maximum damage. All right, so I need to put as many rounds as possible, as quickly as possible on that target. Hopefully to start lowering blood pressure. Make sense? All right, so the body's just an engine. Starts losing fluid and air, things start to change. I want to do one more exercise and then we'll wrap it up. This exercise, again, this is really abbreviated, right? This is normally like an 8-hour block that we do, you know? So this is real abbreviated. So the last thing I want to do with you guys is get you to trust the technique. Right? Trust the technique that you're engaged in. So you're gonna lock that wrist down. Coaches, you're gonna get them to lock that wrist down. Push as hard as they can with the right shoulder. If they're a righty, push as hard as you can with the right shoulder. Pull back as hard as you can with the left shoulder, pulling through the bottom of that front strap. You should feel a lot of pressure on this pinky, right? Because remember that exercise we did with this? That's what we're doing now. That same thing. I'm pulling back to keep that front strap from lifting. And people are like, you don't need to put that much into it. It's just a pistol. I agree. It's just a pistol. You don't have to put that much into it. But again, we're going back to what we talked about, which is learning how to regulate ourselves. Sometimes you have to go over to come back. Also, under the pressure of a fight, a lot of things are going to be diminished. So if you train yourself to do this all the time, lock this down hard, go through the sight alignment by feel exercises, locking everything in, locking everything down, when it's time to shoot live, you don't have to think about it. Your body's like, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to clamp down hard on this bad boy. Make sense? Yes. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do now. Eyes and ears? Eyes and ears. This exercise, I want you guys to pay real close attention, okay? Come here, Jill. All right, so she's gonna be up on her target. I'm gonna go through the process, right? So I'm layering everything in. Don't let me lift the pistol up. Don't let me move around. Push and pull as hard as you can. Keep your finger out of the trigger. Now, relax for a second. What I'm gonna, press the gun back up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my thumb right here, down low.
If you can't see, move around and look.
Don't put your thumb up here because you're gonna get slide bite and then Dan's gonna have to patch you up. We're gonna make fun of you. All right, so put your thumb down here where this tendon is, right? So my thumb's going right there and my finger's gonna go on the trigger. I'm gonna manipulate the trigger now. Make sense? Because you guys are playing around with trying to see the sights and get everything perfect and then press the trigger again. And I want you to trust the process. Rob Latham talks about my index aims the gun. This is what we're building. We're building our index. We're building so that every time that gun comes out and hits this place right here, everything's where it needs to be, and I can start letting it go. Let that gun run, right? All right, so Joe's gonna press out, lock it down, don't move you around, push and pull, ready? Lock it down, don't move you around, push and pull, lock it down, don't move you around, lock it down, don't move you around, lock it down, don't move you around. You can grab your mag. All right, so for the most part, that's not too bad. What do you think? Especially with somebody else whacking the trigger. Was I executing good trigger control? How? Right? I'm just like whacking it. It's like I'm 14 again. This is not too bad, right? Look at that in relation to a body. That's with somebody else manipulating the trigger. What happens when we manipulate the trigger as fast as possible?
A little tighter.
It's going to be tighter right where we want it. All you got to do is hit this right about there. And the pump will start slowing down. Make sense? Yeah. All right, cool. Back on the line. Odds up first. You understand what you're doing, right?
Yes.
All right. Get back up on the line. Training partners, coaches, get on their shoulder. Be very conscious of where your thumb is. Be conscious of where your thumb is. All right, go ahead. Present the pistol. Present the pistol to the target. Don't go yet. I'll tell you when to go. Training partners, coaches, go ahead, test the wrist. Test the wrist. Make sure the wrist does not bend. Make sure their grip is stable and solid. Make sure they are pushing and pulling. Put your thumb in a safe spot. Get your thumb in a safe spot, your fingers on their trigger. You work the trigger. You guys go ahead and go whenever you're ready. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, so the first time that I saw this exercise done in this way was probably like 2001, I think. D.R. Middlebrooks, what he would do is he'd take a dowel rod, he'd stand on the range, lock the gun out, he'd take a dowel rod, stand next to you, reach under the gun, and just start doing this. And you're like, and then he lets you go, and you look at the target, you're like, holy shit. So is that to say that trigger control doesn't matter? Not at all. But what does matter is building yourself a just killer index and then adding really good trigger control where you only move, your finger remains straight and you just can isolate that movement. And then add that to a really good index, you can't miss. You can't miss. When it's time to go to work, save your family or yourself, you have absolute faith. Look, my gun will hit a 4-inch circle at 25 yards or 50 yards. And my skill supports that. I can do work. I'm safe, my family's safe, my community's safe. You can absolutely then make the decision to either do shit or not. But the limiting factor won't be, I don't have the skill to do what I need to do. The limiting factor will be, is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it moral? Right? Then you can do work. Right? All right, cool. Next one's up on the line. Let's go. Check their grip, check their wrist. Make sure their wrist isn't moving. Make sure they are pushing and pulling, locking it down. Now, put your thumb in a safe spot and your finger goes on the trigger. Whenever you're ready, go to work. Start sitting. Get all that so you feel that. It has more connection to your gun, to your arm, right? When I have my thumb in the way, do you have any questions on what we worked on so far? If you have any questions, grab me. I'm happy to answer it. We'll work with you. We're gonna do more of this throughout the week, so don't stress if it didn't make sense yet. It's like anything new though, give it time to work. Have a little faith in it, give it time to work, right? All right, top off mags, come back out on the line. Let's go.
Craft beef cattle get a little older, which gives them a higher propensity to gain some weight and get a little more natural marbling and tenderness.
They seem pretty calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
Living a pretty nice life out here.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of worries.
So this is Bailey.
Bailey.
She's a 5-year-old quarter horse mare. She came out of a rein cow horse program. She kind of decided that she didn't want to do the arena stuff anymore, so she came to live on the ranch in January. And she's been doing ranch work stuff and just loves it. She never had a rope swung on her, and I branded calves on her this spring. And
so this is our standard box. If you order one of our boxes, it comes in this. As long as you don't.
How much meat pound-wise can you fit in there? Like 15
15
pounds?
to 18 pounds, depending on ice packs, depending on where it's going.
And it comes frozen. When it leaves here, it's froze.
It's frozen, yes. And then actually there's a USDA food safety handling card that we insert in there that talks about proper food safety. If it shows up and you have issues, these are the guidelines. Anything over 40 degrees needs to be thrown away. And the thermal dynamics of shipping boxes is actually really interesting. Everything goes in the box, we seal it, it goes straight to FedEx. Over time, it will start to unthaw, especially right now. It's 100 degrees outside. If it shows up to your place and any part of the box is still frozen, the whole box never got above 32 degrees. So basically everything starts at 0, climbs to 32 within the first 8 hours. And it'll hold at 32 until everything is unthawed, and then it comes up. So there's this big plateau. So as long as we deliver in that plateau, we're good.
I got you sent me the one you've got on the floor, and I'm 800 miles from home, 900 miles from home, and everything was still totally frozen, which was great. I just passed it from your cooler to mine and took off to Tennessee with it.